Yeah, gotta aim for the top like, hold up. Yeah, I can never doubt myself, I know better. All of you critics be acting like you know better. Blowing the smoke, but I know when the dust settles that I'm in my element. It's evident that there's levels to the game.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Athletes to Athletes podcast. On today's episode, I talk with Ethan Quinn, a Division II football player who scratched, clawed, and sacrificed his way into becoming a Division III basketball coach at Denison University. Ethan talks about the lessons he learned along the journey to getting to coach basketball, along with how they've shaped and molded him as a better coach and recruiter. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Ethan, and as always, we appreciate you listening and watching the A2A podcast. So as I said, welcome back to the Athletes to Athletes podcast. And today I'm sitting down with Ethan. And Ethan, I'm really excited to talk with you because, as I said, I was a Division III athlete. You were a Division III athlete. You're a Division III coach now. So I always love stepping back into that Division III world, getting perspectives, getting stories, getting all of those different things that I may have experienced, but always love to see what other people experience at their Division III institutions. But as I let you know, I always love to start off conversations the same way. So in that vein, why sports? What was it about sports growing up that pushed you into the sports community? And who were those role models that you kind of maybe modeled your game after, or people that you were just like, I'm watching, number 57 right now. That's the guy I want to play with, right? For me, it was Dion and Warwick Dunn and guys like that. Who was it for you that you were either maybe watching on TV, or maybe it was somebody, that was in your family that pushed you into sports and made you want to join the sports community?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on. This is great. So crazy kind of story. We talked a little bit off air of how we're going to get into the transition of playing college football, then college basketball, but it all correlates. So sports for me, twofold. My dad was a college athlete, played college basketball, so obviously I was familiar with it. Growing up, sports were on in the household, and with my dad's job, we moved all the time, so I never really got a chance to get settled and really play, but we
Mhm.
watched it a lot. Um, and getting into the story here in a few minutes, but my dad actually had an opportunity. He went back and played 1 year of eligibility of college basketball when he was 35 years old, and so I can kind of get into what it meant there. But honestly, sports changed the trajectory of my family's life, and what it did for me personally when we moved to finally a stable location, and I wasn't very good being around that college locker room of my dad. That really opened up my eyes of what I wanted to do moving forward. It was like, I want to be in a college locker room. I want to be a part of a program. I want to be a part of a team. And sports was a happy place when, maybe things at home weren't always the greatest. My dad and I's relationship it was hard growing up. It wasn't easy. And when basketball came into play, it was like nothing else in the world mattered. And I think that was something that really sticks with me even today at 29 years old, just finished up my 6 year of coaching college athletics. But sports have been the absolute biggest impact on my life so far as a whole. It has just completely changed everything for my life for the better. It's taught me a lot of lessons, and I truly don't think you can learn as much from sports. You can't learn it anywhere else. I mean, you get so much tangible life lessons, experiences, ups and downs. I mean, it's a wild, wild place to live in, the world of athletics. But man, I couldn't have been more prepared for adulthood. If I didn't play sports, I mean, I know there would have been areas I would have really, really struggled in, that I feel very confident in as a father, as a husband, as a coach, those types of things. So yeah, I mean, just completely impacted my life in a positive way.
Yeah. So, we were both Division III football players and from my perspective, I loved playing Division III because it wasn't about the fanfare, right? You obviously had some spotlight on your own campus, but it wasn't about those things that everybody talks about on a Saturday when they're sitting at the tailgate and they're, oh, this guy is a 5 star, he's a 4 star, this NIL deal, that NIL deal. And obviously, when I was in college in 2005, 2009, none of those things came into play, but it was the love of the game a lot more so on that level because guys just wanted to play. When it came to you deciding what sport you were going to play at the next level, why was it football instead of basketball? Because like you said, it had, basketball had such a stronghold on you and your dad's relationship. So why was it football for you?
Sure. So I want to make a correction or something to go forward with. So coaching for me at the D3 level now, I actually played Division II
Okay.
for
Yep.
college football. And so the size of the school was smaller than most Division IIIs, but I ended up playing Division II. Uh, to go into that question, it was basketball is what I wanted to do the whole time. I didn't want to play football. I loved watching football, but like, I was 10, 11 years old. My dad's 35 playing college basketball. That's all I wanted to do. And I was the big kid that couldn't chew gum and walk at the same time. I was the kid that was, 6'1", and everybody else is 5'5" and below. And I've been 6'6", 6'7" since a senior in high school. And so I was not very good at sports, and basketball was just always that happy place. Going, my dad coached after, and um, yeah, it was just my happy place when I wasn't very good, to be honest with you. And so then I get to high school. We get a new high school football coach. I'm from small town, Southern Appalachia, Ohio. We get a new football coach. I'm the biggest kid in high school as a freshman. I go meet with him. My mom's the secretary, and I'm just like, "Hey, coach, congratulations on your job. I wish you nothing but the best. I'll be at as many games as I can." And he's looking at
Mhm.
me like, "You'll be as many games. This town shuts down on Friday nights for football." And he just begged me and wanted me to play, and I'm like, "Trust me, you don't want me to play." Long story short, for some reason I believed him and I trusted him, and it took me 2 years to figure it out. And when I got through my junior year of football, high school basketball, my high school was kind of a train wreck, to be honest with you. It was like the 3 or 4 coaches in 4 years kind of thing. It was a really
Mhm.
nasty situation. Football, we were really good. And what I realized was, I'm like, okay, my dream of playing college basketball is probably out the door. I was a 6'7", 280-pound, back to the basket, somewhat athletic post player that I knew my role and I was really good at it. But nobody's taking that off of a 4-win team a year.
Yeah.
And so, uh, my junior year, we went 10-0 in football, second round of the playoffs, won the conference. I was starting at left tackle. I mean, things really started to pick up in that aspect. I remember I got my first recruiting letter. Somebody wants me to play college football for them. Um, so with all of that, when I get to my senior year, I decided not even to play basketball, which was really, really, really difficult for me because my childhood dreams are gone at that point. I'm
Mhm.
like, I didn't have a good high school career. I'm not playing college basketball. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be an athletic trainer. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a college basketball player and a college basketball coach. And I saw my whole childhood dream just going out the window. And so, to say all of that, I chose to go play college football because I knew that it was give me an opportunity to graduate from school with little to zero debt. It was going to give me an opportunity to play at the next level, which is something I wanted to do, even though it wasn't basketball. But I was simply only doing that knowing somehow, some way, I'm going to get into college basketball,
Yeah.
somehow, some way, as a coach. So to be honest with you, I went and played college football to get my college paid for and to hopefully find a way to use that time to get plugged in somehow, some way. And it kind of came full circle because I had had a couple opportunities post college to start coaching and they all fell through. My first coaching job, I ended up back at my alma mater coaching on the basketball side. And so, I told myself I was going to make it happen. I didn't really understand why I ended up where I did playing football. I was a Division I commit out of high school. There was a coaching change super late. I didn't want to go 8 hours away to play for Joe Schmo, who didn't know me. I didn't know him.
Yeah.
So then I panic and end up going with one of the first Division IIs. Actually, they were the first Division II to ever offer me a scholarship and went with them. And that's where my first college coaching job ended up being. And so everything came full circle. I just had a really weird way to go about it.
Yeah. That's interesting because you knew what your love was, but you obviously had a completely different means of getting there.
Yeah.
And once you got there, once the okay, my football career is done, which first I should probably ask, was there anyone that tried to convince you to keep playing football?
Post college.
Yeah.
So that's a it's an interesting question. So I graduated high school when I was super young. So I showed up freshman year in August to training camp, freshman year of college football at 17.
Same.
And
So I know that that like.
and what I didn't realize was 2 years after that, when I technically could be graduating as a senior in high school, the difference in my body, my mental, everything about my overall well-being was completely different in that 2 years. I get to my
Mhm.
redshirt sophomore year of college, and I'm a completely different person at this point. I'm like, man, I could have been a senior in high school at this point. I mean, I remember going to a couple high level camps going my senior year. I remember, I think Kevin Wilson was the head coach at Indiana at the time. And I had a really, really good camp at Indiana. And Kevin Wilson came up, talked to me. He said, Ethan, I loved what you've done today. But the reality is, I can go get somebody that's already way more advanced than you are mentally, physically, maturity level, all that stuff. And he said, I just don't have time to wait on you to develop that. And I was like, that kind of sucks to hear.
Yeah.
And then I go to Kentucky the next day and have the worst camp of my entire camp travels because I was just so sick and disappointed from hearing that. And I say that because I don't ever play the what if game, but the reality is I was at my strongest in college. I was 6'7", 328 pounds. I could bench press a house. I was putting up mid 20s in the 225 bench press. Like my feet were good. I'd started to figure it out. I played for a rough position coach in college that really challenged me in a lot of ways. Things were not always easy, and I think I got counted out before I got a chance to show that, hey, I'm going to figure this out. Reminder: I'm 17 years old at this point.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there were times that I had people ask me like, "Hey, what do you think about staying your fifth year, that redshirt year, and seeing what can happen, or those types of things?" Because at the end of the day, you can't teach 6'7", 330 that can bench press a
Yeah.
house. And so the reality is, if I would have been in high school 2 years later, which I could have been, especially you can be like past 18 now in high school. If
Mhm.
that would have happened, I would have been anywhere in the country I wanted to be and probably playing in the NFL still. But everything in my life has worked out exactly where it needed to, and it's gotten me to the point where I'm at now. And so I don't ever play the what if game, but I also, at the same point, like I told you earlier, I have a 2 year old boy, and my wife and I both played college athletics. If he wants to play athletics, that's amazing. If he doesn't, that's okay. Like we'll support him in whatever he wants to do. We don't need to live through him. We already did it. But if he does want to play athletics, he's going to be the oldest kid in his class because
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't want him to miss out on any opportunities than like I did. And so I'm like, if he wants to go play at Ohio State and play in the NFL, I want him to be prepared to do so and not have to wait 2 more years or just be that underdeveloped kid because that's what happened to me. And so yeah, it's kind of a long version of that question, but yeah, there were times people had asked, you just take a look at me and you're like, "What are you doing?" And but the same reason why I didn't go back for my fifth year of playing college football, my body, my mind, I was done.
Mhm.
I could not play another snap of football. Didn't want to go back and get grad school taken care of. I didn't want to go back to school. I was walking across senior day. Um, in a lot of pain mentally and physically, and I knew it was time to be done. And so I made the absolute right decision. But like I said, it is hard not to play that what if game sometimes because it's like I saw what happened in that 2 year span where I could have still been in high school. I mean, I joke all the time. My first varsity start, Friday night football game in high school, mommy and daddy had to drop me off because I didn't have my driver's license. And so like that's the biggest kid in the school was getting dropped off by his parents because I'm so young. And so yeah, it was a very, very interesting journey to get to that point. But like I said, if my son wants to play, he's going to be the oldest kid because I don't want him to miss those opportunities like I did.
Yeah, having the insight is definitely something to kind of behold. And I was 17 as well. Like I can remember showing up to camp and all the parents left and my mom was sitting next to me because I couldn't even sign the paperwork by myself as a 17-year-old freshman. So it is very different, and I can completely attest to that. A couple years later and you're like, man, I'm faster, I'm stronger, I'm way bigger. Like all of these things
Yeah,
really start to hit. So I can completely understand that. But and playing that what if game, you try not to, but there are certainly times when you're like, man, I grew up with that guy, right? Like I know that guy that is now playing or still competing or doing this or doing that. So it's really tough not to. But I do want to transition now into how did you end up back at your alma mater coaching basketball? What was it? What were those conversations like, and how did you get that chance? Because they obviously know you at your alma mater for playing football. You were
Yep.
never on the basketball courts or anything else unless you were probably, playing some pickup ball. How
I am
did
a
that happen?
two-time intramural champ. I want to get that out there. I am a
Yeah.
two-time intramural champ. So yeah, this part of the story is so fun to talk about because you hear all these stories about how coaches start from the ground up, right? You're sleeping in their office and eating just slices of bread and like that was all they could
Yeah.
afford and sleeping on guys' couches and yeah. So I've had a very unique journey to get to that point. So when I graduated from ODU, I graduated in 2017. And I was lucky I had zero college debt when I graduated, but I also didn't have any money to my name because I couldn't work or didn't have time for a job or anything.
Yeah.
And so when I left there, I thought, okay, I don't really want to go back to like grad school and get a GA job, but that probably might be my only way to get in somewhere, or I'm gonna have to volunteer. One of the two. Like nobody is hiring me with a paid salary when I didn't even play senior year of high school basketball.
Yeah.
And so I took the first year. Luckily, my dad's parents, my grandparents, they lived just outside of Columbus where I was at, and I just told them, I said, "Hey, I'm going to work 4 jobs. I'm going to work 80 hours a week. You'll never see me. I just need somewhere to lay my head down at night for a year. Like, I just need somewhere where I can save enough to get in an apartment. I was like, I won't bother you. Like, I'll get my own groceries. Grandma obviously made dinners, which was great.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, I just need somewhere to lay my head down. I probably won't sleep much, but I just need somewhere to stay. And
Hmm.
so they did. They opened their doors, and that allowed me to go. And all I did was work. I mean, so I substitute taught during the day. So my schedule was a 7:30 to 3 substitute teaching. The moment I got done substitute teaching, I would go to my grandparents. I would change, and then I was a Buffalo Wild Wings server from 4 p.m. till 1 a.m. when they close. I get home 2 a.m., get a shower, go to bed, wake up and sub the next day. And then when basketball season came around, I got into officiating because I wanted to make connections with high school coaches and college coaches when I refereed AAU. So I got into basketball officiating. So during basketball season, I would substitute teach. I would referee games at night. Saturdays, I would do like 5 little kids games in the morning. I would do a varsity game in the afternoon, a varsity game in the evening. Sundays, I would go to church and I would knock out like 10 youth games during the Sundays. I mean, that was my life. I worked for a scouting service. I mean, I did everything I could have possibly throw my name in to make money. I did it. And so I was working 80 hours a week minimum and for a year. And after that, I was able to get my own apartment. At this time, I got my own apartment, but I'm eating ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, and like that
Yeah.
was that was my steady diet. And so I worked 2 years, and then I finally am like, okay, I think financially here, if I need to volunteer somewhere, I can figure it out. If I needed to get a GA job, I can figure it out. And I wanted to scratch that itch. Yeah, I mean, I was hurting at this point. I was like, I gotta start this. And so, like I said, I had 2 opportunities laid out, 2 different ones. Both of them didn't work out for one reason or another. And I'm like, okay, Lord, why is this happening? Like nothing has worked out the way I wanted it to so far. And I finally thought I was gonna get in and I didn't. Like, what is going on here? The head coach at Ohio Dominican, where I was, he left and took another Division II job down south. The assistant I knew just from being there playing football, intramurals, that kind of thing. And when he got the job, I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I would love to just come and chat with you for a few minutes."
Hmm.
So I walked into his office and we talked, and he already had his staff picked out. And I was like, "Listen, I will work for free. Like I don't care if it's I will do your own laundry if that's what I
Yeah.
need to do." I was like, I will do laundry, I will mop the floors, I will keep the clock at practice, I will drive the furthest recruiting trips for you. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I said, the reason that you want me here is I'm working for free. I will work harder than anybody. And I went to school here. I just graduated from here 2 years ago. So I can tell these recruits exactly what it was like to be a student athlete here. And I'm like, that is where I provide value. And obviously, at that point, you're a brand new head coach and you got some young guy that wants to do his own, do the head coach's laundry. And,
Yeah.
I was like, I'll do whatever you need me to do. And he took a chance on me. And so that's what I did. and I was very thankful. He allowed me to do a lot. I mean, I did on the floor instruction with the guys, scouting reports. I didn't know what I was doing, but man, I tried. I gave it all that I had. And, he would say, "Hey, I need you to go this place to recruit, this place to recruit." Sure, I would do it. And so, actually, at a job fair, I was walking across campus. I had just taken the job as a volunteer. There was a job fair for all the students, and I walked past. There was a Nike booth, and the general manager at one of the outlet malls, it's like 20 minutes from Columbus, he had a sign that said, it was something like multiple shifts throughout a day, or like evening shifts or something. And I just like looked at it. Long story short, I got with him, and he said they actually had a shift starting at 4:30 in the morning to 9 a.m. before the stores opened up, where they would have somebody get the stuff off the trucks. I'm getting a box of 100 sweatshirts off the trucks.
Hmm.
I'm putting hangers on them, those little stinking size tags on the hangers,
Yeah.
and then I'm organizing them, or I'm going through all the shoe shipments and organizing those. And I was like, I want to be in the office every day because it's the only way I'm going to learn. And I'm like, huh, maybe if I do this, I'll have enough money to at least like keep my apartment and eat more than peanut butter every day.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought, okay, even if this just pays my rent, I can do this. So I got a job at Nike. So I worked 4:30 in the mornings to 9 a.m. So when the store opened up, I left, I clocked out, and I would head into the office. I did that because I got to just sit and listen, and I got to learn, and I did that 4 days a week. And so there were some long days in there. I would get in the office. I'd work from 4:30 to 9, get in the office, do a workout with one of our guys, do some laundry, watch some film. We would have practice, and then he was like, "Hey, I need you to head to Cleveland to recruit tonight." Cool, no problem. I got in the car, I drove to Cleveland. Cleveland's 2.5 hours away from Columbus. I get back home at 1 a.m. My alarm's going off at 3:30 to be at work by 4:30. And like, yeah, that sucked, but I didn't know what else to do at that point. And I'm like, if this
Hmm.
is my way and I'm going to do it. And so I did that for a year. And then I realized, okay, I'm going to not be able to function if I do this for any more than a
Yeah.
year. And so I made it through the first season, and our top assistant left, took another job. They promoted the second guy up, promoted me up. So I got my first promotion. And then I was lucky enough, I got plugged in with a kind of a remote sales job that allowed me to work from the basketball office. And so I was in the office every day. I had two full-time jobs I was working at. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And so that was just an unbelievable opportunity for me. It was a long 2 years. It was not always, sunshine and rainbows for 2 years. But at the end of the day, I will always, always be in debt to that head coach, that program, that staff, that took a chance on me, because they had no reason to do so. And that allowed me to get into 4 years where I'm at now. I'm now the top assistant on staff. Got my first full-time job. And so, yeah, just very, very blessed, even though the journey was not always easy.
Yeah. I mean, that's a grind. That's a grind of a story. And you got to do what you got to do, right? You got to figure everything out when you want something, right? And it takes that one person to say, you get in here, right?
I
And
just
you
needed a
got that.
chance. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, you also made sure that your value, what you brought was on the forefront, not just, hey, I'm a guy that's gonna do everything, but this is what I bring, right? This
Yeah.
is this is
Yep.
truly what I bring step by step. And you made it happen and you made it work. And
Yep.
now, like as you said, you're the head assistant, and you've taken literally all of that grind into the position that you now have. I want to talk about the recruiting angle of all of it, because as you said, you were at a Division II school, obviously very different, but you were also driving all over, grinding to recruit and bring guys in.
Yep.
Now you're at a completely different school, a place where you had to learn the ins and outs because you weren't a student there. So it was a lot different for you to be
Yep.
on a new campus, learn the new campus, learn the new coaching staff, learn the students on the campus. What was that transition like for you? And how hard was it to leave your alma mater when you found this new opportunity?
Yeah. So I always try to give credit where credit's due. I always try to let people know how much I appreciate them always. And I'm appreciative to my dad for introducing me to the game and allowing me to be around that program at 10, 11 years old, right? I'm always in debt to the head coach at Ohio Dominican that gave me a chance when he didn't have to. Um, I'm always in debt to the assistant coach that was at Denison the last couple of years. He actually played for my dad at in college, and so that's how we knew each other. He was at another job. He got the top assistant job at Denison, and so when I left Ohio Dominican, he reached out to me. He's like, "What are you about to do?" And I'm like, "Honestly, I think I'm about to coach high school basketball," which just sounds terrible. I was like, "No." He was like, "Well, we got a new coach at Denison. He's looking to add somebody on staff. It's not paid, probably some summer camp money, but he's looking to find somebody that can really focus on recruiting." And he said, "I don't know how many people do it better than you do." And he said, "I'm willing to throw your name to him if you're willing to take the job." And I was like, "I don't know anything about the Division III world." I was like, "I don't know anything about the high academic space. Like I barely graduated college." I'm like, I don't know anything about this." And I remember he was like, "Do you want to coach college basketball or not?" And I said, "Yep, sure do. Let's do it."
Easy
And
answer.
so I jumped on a phone call or a Zoom call with the head coach, and he didn't know me. He took the assistant coach's word for it. We interviewed, and I told him, I said, "Listen," I was like, I still have this remote sales job at the time. My wife and I are together at this point. And I'm like, "I'm willing to do whatever you need me to do." Said it's going to take me a while to learn about a completely new level, a completely new school. The high academic space is a whole different thing in itself. I
Mhm.
said, "But I will do whatever you need me to do, and I will get to work." And Denison men's basketball and historically has not been very good. And I just told him, I said, "If you're actually wanting to change this program, I'll do it." I was like, I will do it." And that's just kind of how I approached it. And obviously for him, once again, you got a guy that's coached college before that's willing to do it for free. And so I kind of took a step back. But what I didn't know is it was going to lead me to the point now, 4 years later, that I'm in a spot that I couldn't have ever imagined being in, honestly. And so, yeah, I'll always be in debt to the assistant, Devin Price, for giving me just a little bit of a nudge and also just sticking my name into somebody's plate that really could have just gotten rid of it. And then, our
Mhm.
head coach, Chris Sullivan, took a chance on a college football player that kind of liked basketball and coached in the past for free, but like he had no reason to take me on. Especially, I told him, I said, "I knew nothing about the school, I knew nothing about the space." And he took me on, and my journey just kind of skyrocketed from there. Our second assistant, halfway through my first season, had to leave because of some health issues. So then I go from helping where I can, recruiting pretty hard, to, "Hey, do you want to start doing scouting reports?" "Sure. Yeah, let's do it." So I did it. And then the second year, it's Devin and I, and we're doing everything together, grinding together, recruiting together, scouting reports, on court instruction. He and I are going to town, going to work on it. And I never ever treated it like a volunteer spot. I never ever treated it like a part time spot. I mean, I was in
Mhm.
the office every day. I mean, our head coach sometimes he was like, "I don't think, you don't need to go recruit tomorrow." I'm like, "Yes, I do." Or he's like, "Don't, just get these three things done. Just do it that way. Don't worry about these things." I'm like, "Do you want these done?" He's like, It's not a big deal." I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to get those done."
I'm gonna
Like,
get them all done. Yeah.
I'm just going to do it. And so it allowed me to continue to move up. And then Coach Price got the opportunity to go to the Division I level this past year. And our head coach looked at me and he said, "There's no reason I would ever open this job if you want it." He was like, "You've earned it. I would want nobody else to take this job." And so 5 years of coaching, year six was my first full-time assistant spot. And all season I was in awe of, like, "Oh my gosh, I made it. Like, this is what I wanted." If I ever get to be a head coach one day, which is the ultimate goal, I think I'll have even a bigger, I'll probably be an emotional wreck for a while. But we had the best season in school history this year, so that was obviously very, very awesome. But I mean, I had just multiple games. I just sat on the bench pregame and just kind of looked around. And I just tried to embrace where I've gotten, and it was not always easy, but
Mhm.
just so thankful to be where I am, and make that transition. Going from college football to college basketball was hard, and so that's kind of the journey of how I got there. And then to answer your recruiting side of things, so being at I don't want to say underfunded, but we were not fully funded like the majority of the D2s in our conference. So
Mhm.
being at a lower funded Division II school, we tried to recruit everywhere within like 5 hours, because at the end of the day, I'm not getting a kid from Austin, Texas to come to Ohio Dominican where I'm not even going to be able to pay for all the schooling, right?
Yeah.
So I got to the point that I knew every high school within a 5 hour radius because I had to go to all these places, right? And so being there, you're obviously recruiting, scholarship talent, and trying to find kids that it's not, you go to an AAU tournament and you find this kid that you really like, and you look into three out of the five fully funded D2 schools in the Midwest, or even in your conference, are watching the same kid. It's like, I should probably go watch another kid.
Yeah.
So that was a really hard balance for me to figure out. And then, doing the amount of recruiting that I did really, really, really helped me as I got to the new job at Denison. But now I'm going to Division III athletes, high academic space. Like, I didn't fully understand how, if a kid, I thought a 3.3 GPA was great, but at Denison, there's 15,000 kids trying to get into school. They're going to take 600 or 700 of them. A 3.3 is, that's laughable at times,
Yeah.
because the transcripts and the stuff that you're getting at the school is wild, right? And so, I mean, I had to really, really learn what it was about, and I also had to stop fighting it. Like, it was so hard. I found so many kids, and I'm like, this kid would be the best player ever to come out of this program, that I like could easily recruit him. But if you don't have the grades, I can't do anything about it. And that part was really, really difficult. Um, at Denison, obviously, our bandwidth is a little bit larger. Our
Hmm.
reach is a little bit larger. Like, when I was at Ohio Dominican, I don't have anybody from California reaching out to me like, hey, I really researched the school and I want to be there. It's like, that just wasn't real. At Denison, there's a lot of kids from California, Florida, Connecticut that are reaching out, and they're like, hey, I've done my research on, the high academic schools in the Midwest. That's where I want to be. I really, really like the data analytics program at Denison. I've done my research on that. Or, hey, my mom is a Denison grad, had a great experience. Or, hey, my dad's coworker played football there, had a great experience. Like, we get leads like that all the time. Like, if you
Hmm.
look at our roster, we have a lot of Ohio kids on our roster, but we have kids from all over the country. And so now it's my travel. Instead of at Ohio Dominican, I was not flying anywhere. We had $10 in our recruiting budget. I was not flying anywhere. I, I I didn't have enough money in the recruiting budget to get food sometimes going to a trip. It was enough gas to put in my car. Like, half the time we couldn't even get a rental car. And so now I get to a place at Denison where there's a lot of resources. And because they know that you have to go find these kids that are a lot further away than just in my backyard in Columbus, I'm still going to get those kids, but it's just fewer and far further between because of the GPA and the grade requirements to get into school. But so now my recruiting is, I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to Chicago. I'm heading down to Houston at the end of May. I'll be heading out to Los Angeles for an academic showcase in July. That's what that travel is starting to look like. And so the reason for that is I've got to go into areas, high schools that make sense for the school. And that was hard because I'm like, to find really smart kids that are also really tough and are really willing to make winning plays over and over and over again, sometimes doesn't always, those two things don't always correlate.
Yeah.
And I think what Denison in the past, I think they were just finding the most talented, smart kids they could find that kind of liked basketball, and they rolled out a team. And when I got hired, I'm like, listen, this is not intramurals. Like, if I'm gonna be here, we're going to win championships. Like, we are going to do this. And I think our other assistant at the time wanted to get there, but he couldn't get there alone.
Hmm.
So he suckered me into it, knowing that I would help him do it.
Yeah.
And like I said, we went to war together. And I mean, we spent hours and hours on the road together, separate, going separate ways, sleeping on people's couches if we couldn't get a hotel at the time. I mean, we did whatever we could. And if you look at our record the last 4 years being together at Denison, I mean, we have won more games ever in a 4 year stretch than Denison has. We won our first regular season championship, conference championship. We went 24-4 this year. I mean, we have gotten this thing to the point now of where it needs to be. And
Hmm.
by doing that, I've had to be really honest with myself when I'm recruiting and not falling in love with, well, that kid's a 4.0 30 ACT and he's pretty talented. but I can't ignore all the red flags of the lack of toughness, the lack of discipline, the lack of respect for his mom when she brought him a Gatorade over during the game and he just blew her off. Like those types of things, I can't ignore that, because at the end of the day, I need to be able to trust you to do the hard things when it's hard. I need you to trust, I need to trust you to do hard things. And it is hard to dive on the floor after a loose ball when you've already played 27 minutes in a game and you're hurting. It's hard to take a charge when that guy, you know, that guy's going to run you over, but it's a game shifter if you just stand there and let it happen. It's hard to get yelled at by your coach and look him in the eye and shake your head and go, I got you, and keep moving forward. That stuff is hard. And so I have gone with, I'll take the second or third most talented kid on the team that plays his rear end off. I'll take that kid. I'll
Mm-hmm.
take that kid because I can win with that kid. And so that's the biggest thing now in recruiting with all this traveling, and you get into some of these high schools in these areas. I mean, it's high level. Some of these high schools are bigger than colleges. Some of
Yeah.
the graduating classes, you've got, I mean, close to 1,000 kids in a graduating class. I'm like, it's bigger than my entire high school, you know? and there's so much that goes into it, and it's easy. You fall in love with the kid that you went to watch and he scored 26 points, and you're like, there's obviously something to say that if you're scoring 25 plus in a game, but I can't ignore those red flags that I saw, because you're not going to elevate this program where we have gotten it to be. And we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten it to be because we make tough plays. We talk about it all the time, like our standard that we've set, like no one wants to do what we love to do. That's
Yeah.
what we tell our guys. No one in our conference, no one outside of who our non-conference schedule, no one wants to do what we love to do. And that is all the hard things to win games. I mean, you'll watch us, coaches that never had to worry about Denison and recruiting get really, really upset when one of our coaches are watching the same kid they're watching. Or even on the floor, you're watching the way we play. I mean, we will full court press you the entire game. We are going to be up in your stuff. We are really, really overwhelming for the majority of the game, and we've recruited like that. And you see diversity on a roster that you've never seen before. You see kids from areas that Denison had not recruited from in the past. You know, we've got kids from the Chicago area that their high school had 1,000 kids in it, and it was $40,000-$50,000 a year for them to go to high school. We've also got kids from inner city Columbus, inner city Cleveland that took care of their business. They got a 4.0, finished at the top of their class, and both of those kids, the Chicago kid from 1,000 kids in a graduating class to the inner city kid in Cleveland, they're both making an unbelievable difference for us right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so to answer, you know, that recruiting question, I know that's kind of long-winded, but it was a complete shift for me, realizing I had to go get on an airplane to head to, you know, Los Angeles to go to an academic camp full of 250 kids that all know where Denison is. And it's just, it's a very, very hard thing not to fight, because I'm like, I can just get a 3.3 is great. That's a good GPA. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to work with this. And the admissions team is like,
Yeah.
got 15,000 kids trying to get in here. So I've stopped fighting it, and I've just pursued what I know I'm able to do. And then, just like I said, having those honest conversations has gotten this program to where it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the recruiting side of sports is, it's so crazy, right? Because right now, and I also cover college wrestling, and right now the transfer portal is open, and you've got, you know, this kid that was, you know, third or even a national runner up is now in the transfer portal. Like every single day, it's been something new and something different when it comes to this transfer portal. And one of the things that Reed and I are going to talk about on on a show probably later on, in a week or so, is how these schools are handling all of the new NCAA nuance that is coming down the pike. And one of the schools that we had seen just changed their division from Division 1 to Division 3.
And they just won
So
their conference.
exactly, right? So a lot of these big time changes are happening in sports, and with you guys being a Division 3 school, and you just talked about the tough recruiting angle, and you just kind of succumbing to knowing you have to get the kid that is building this incredible thing at the science fair, but can also, you know, jump over a 6'5" kid
Yep, yep.
is the hardest part. But how much do you guys pay attention to things that are happening on, I'm going to say the Division 1 level, because when the decisions are being made, it isn't Division III Denison that is on the scope that they're talking about, right? It's the UNCs, it's the Dukes, it's, football wise, it's the Alabamas. How much do you guys pay attention to those things? And have you started to look into how you can capitalize on the roster caps and how a lot of these kids are going to be forced out because of these roster caps and how you bring in these kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I've really enjoyed being the full-time assistant now is I get welcome into some doors and meetings I wasn't welcome in the past. And I say that because now I'm hearing from our compliance directors, our athletic
Hmm.
directors, the president of the university, and they're bringing up some things that I hadn't really processed and thought about. And I'm like, man, this is actually trickling down more than I thought it is. And so it's very interesting. So yes, we are very aware. We talk about it very often of like, hey, do we want to kind of sit around and let this all blow up and kind of respond, or do we want to get ahead of the game as an institution, as athletic programs? Do we want to get ahead of the game and make some decisions where people have to follow us? That's kind of where Denison is right now. I don't know what that's actually going to look like, but that's kind of where the mindset of the school is. So yeah, we're very, very aware of all the transitions that are happening. At the end of the day, the NCAA is not going to be around at some point. I don't know when
Hmm.
that's coming, but I think they opened the floodgates so wide. I don't know if you can ever close them again. And so now, one more point with that. I think if they are going to try to close them, I think people have realized they don't actually need them. And so then
Yeah.
it's going to get to the point that it's like, okay, we're trying to close it. And it's like, I don't need you. I'll go create my own thing. And so, yeah, we're very, very aware as an institution. From a recruiting standpoint, so the best thing that I can give you is now, if we're talking Division I men's basketball, right? So the cap for the roster is 15 now. There are no more preferred walk-ons. There are no more anybody outside of that roster other than 15 scholarship players. Like that is what their roster is, right? So there's a trickle down effect, right? There's been a trickle down effect since the pandemic when the transfer portal actually started like happening.
Hmm.
You had all those fringe scholarship kids. So the fringe D1 kids became D2 kids. The fringe D2 kids became D3 kids. Like that's kind of how it's worked. And so like Division III basketball is better than it has ever been because
Hmm.
there's so many scholarship kids running around that there just wasn't an opportunity for them anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
we have guys on our roster. We just graduated the best post player in our conference, one of the best post players in Division III. I recruited the crap out of him when I was at Ohio Dominican. Like he is very well good enough that he would have been somewhere else. He would have got paid a lot of money, but we don't really worry. Like when kids come to Denison, they don't leave. Like the school is just so good. Like they're not leaving, especially now where we have the basketball program. But if he would have had this process start when all this was happening right now, you tell a kid like, hey, you come here and here's six figures on a piece of paper. Like they got to at least think about that. And
Yeah.
so I say that because, like I said, our level is fire right now. I mean, D3 basketball is so much better than what people actually think it is, and it's just because of that trickle down effect. So with that, we have kids that we've recruited the last 2 years, right, and they go to Ohio State as a preferred walk on. Well, they're not getting a scholarship, and now they aren't having a roster spot either. And so then it's like, okay, now we're reaching out to that kid or hoping that kid reaches out to us. And it was like, hey, I'm looking for a home. Or we're like, hey, there's not a spot for you there anymore. Would you like to entertain us again? So that's something that we're looking into is, okay, what kids did we recruit that ended up taking that preferred walk on spot that now don't have a home? Is it somebody we can kind of get down to us, come to Denison for 2 or 3 years, play, and move on from there? So yeah, that's how we've been kind of navigating that roster cap spot from Division I. But the trickle down effect has pushed some kids out that probably didn't deserve to be pushed out. But at the end of the day, where it is now with all the eligibility changes that are happening, like if you're a Power 4 coach, there's no reason for you to go recruit high school kids anymore. There's not. Like there's
Yeah.
always going to be a Cooper flag, right? There's always going to
Yeah.
be the kid that is just probably like he can go to the NBA next year and be fine. Like there's always going to be those high school kids or those prep kids, but like you're just typical high school kid that was getting recruited at that level. Like that is gone. They're and it's not coming back. And so now all those kids are getting pushed down and down and down. And like I said, there's some kids getting pushed out of places that probably shouldn't be, but it's just the nature of the business that it is now. And so that's where we keep our eye on the kid that we recruited, and he went to Division II level, and he's like, I got there, the school sucks, we didn't win a lot, like I should have went to Denison to begin with. Well, then that's the kid we're reaching out to, right? I'm in the portal a ton, but it's looking for those kids, right? It's the kids that we recruited in the past that I'm like, okay, it didn't work for you. Now let's make the right decision here. Let's come to Denison like you should have in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that trickle down effect is very obvious. The school as a whole is very aware of it. Us as a program, we are very aware of it. And like I said, I think us as an institution is going to kind of get ahead of the game and make decisions where we're not going to just be reactive to whatever craziness ends up happening.
Yeah, it's funny because, like I said, I with covering wrestling, I cover mostly the Division I level. I would say probably 90% of it is the Division I level. And I'll being a Division III athlete, I'm always going to check in with my friends. But at that Division I level, you have to re-recruit these kids every year,
Every year.
and you have to make sure that they're happy, that they have everything that they want. A lot of the times it's okay, this was your NIL deal for 1 year. Now we have to find another one. Or, some kids are coming in with NIL deals for car dealerships. So they have a car for a year and then they have to change over the car. And, the collectives are making sure that the insurance is paid and the taxes are paid. And just there's so much more that is going into this. But at Denison, like you said, you are now focusing on those kids that are being pushed out of those institutions where they thought that they were going to, where they looked at that shiny pamphlet and said,
Yep.
"Oh,
Yep.
that's awesome. I want to go there." Right? So like it's always and it's going to be a revolving door over these next couple of years where as people figure out how these things are going to go. And I love that you said that Denison wants to be ahead in all of these things because you do have the coaches, and I have talked to coaches on every single level that says, I want to just sit back and see what happens. We want to just sit back, allow everything to just happen in front of us and react to it instead of being in the mix and possibly, getting some shrapnel from being too close to it. So you have two schools of thought. I'm definitely more of the thought that you guys have of let's be ahead of this. Let's let these kids know what is really in store and what's at stake for them where they can come here and establish something as opposed to probably having to go to 2, 3, and maybe even 4 schools to just find out where they love to be and where they're most comfortable. Something that you said, and I kind of want to talk to you more so about being a dad at this point, is you talk about recruiting and I saw how much you lit up when you talked about your son who's 2 and your wife who you said also played sports. One, what sport did your wife play? And 2, you also said that if your son wanted to play sports, you would certainly give him the power to do that and support him. Have you ever had conversations about, well, there's a lot that is changing in sports that we want to shield him from. And do you guys have those kind of conversations? And like I said, I want to take you from being a coach to being a dad in this conversation.
Yeah. So my wife is, like I told you earlier, she's from Buffalo, New York originally.
Mm-hmm.
Played basketball her whole life. So really cool kind of short story. So her dad played college athletics. He was 1,000-point scorer in basketball. So John Beilein, that was the longtime coach at Michigan,
Okay.
coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers. John Beilein's first coaching job, she coached Haley's dad. And
Oh,
so
nice.
it was a D3 up there. And so he talks about all the time that, John was the same age as the juniors and seniors on the team. He was like, he was just kind of one of the guys. And so, yeah, Haley's dad played for John Beilein in his first job. So basketball was Haley's thing growing up. She wasn't a softball girl. She wasn't a volleyball girl. But I think it was her sophomore year. She said she got so burnt out. She was like, I don't even want to look at a basketball anymore. So the volleyball coach at her high school found out the 6'2" girl didn't want to play basketball anymore and jumped on top of it. And so Haley went to Mercyhurst, which is, well,
Okay.
it's Division I now, but they were
Mm-hmm.
Division II in Erie, Pennsylvania, played volleyball there. And then she moved down to Columbus here for a teaching and coaching job, but she's just teaching now. Coaching for her kind of went out the door when she got pregnant. So she's down here. Like she obviously understands basketball, but volleyball is what she really loves to do. Honestly, yeah. And transitioning to Theo. So he'll turn 2 next month. Me being 6'7", Haley being 6'2", he's a behemoth of a 2-year-old. We always joke, everybody's like, why is your 5-year-old still sucking on a pacifier? I'm like, well, he's not even 2 yet.
Yeah.
But I getting married and adapting to that change in my life was huge, and it challenged me in a lot of ways. And um, I I thank Haley all the time, and I tell people all the time, like Haley has made me a better man and has taught me a side of life that I didn't really fully understand for a very long time, and I'll always have love for her for that and appreciate her for that. And she continues to challenge me. We'll both be turning 30 this summer, and she continues to challenge me after being married for a couple years and now having a kid. So I'm always super thankful for her. But man, having a child just completely changes your entire life. It completely changes your perspective. It changes the things that you thought were important that aren't as important anymore. I talked about all the time, like my faith is really big to me in my life,
Mhm.
and I've never seen God so clearly right in front of me as I watched Haley get pregnant and give birth to that baby boy, and watching somebody on a computer screen that's this size grow
Yeah.
into what he is now, and just watching that process. And it's just one of those things that it's often I kind of sit back and I'm just like, thank you, Lord, for a healthy baby boy that you've entrusted Haley and I with. So yeah, it completely changed my life. And I've not been perfect, but I have tried to be the very best dad I can be to him, and support Haley. And going through the pregnancy process, post pregnancy, it's not easy. People don't really warn you for all the things that come with that. And so, there's stresses on your marriage because the kid's not sleeping more than a 45-minute stretch a night. And you don't realize how much I'm like, I'm really upset with you right now. And I don't know why, but I'm upset with you. And it's like, oh, neither of us have slept for longer than 45 minutes straight. Or you know, Haley going through a lot of things post pregnancy that people don't really talk about. And that's a really hard thing to manage and balance. And,
Yeah.
we had to really work through those things together. And I think the common theme as we navigated those things together was we had our eyes on that baby boy. And it was like, we need to be the best that we can be for him. And if we're not being the best we can be for each other, then he's going to be getting a disservice from us. And
Yeah.
so as we talk about trying to start for that second child here soon, that's something we have talked about, is like, finally we at least know what we know now, because we didn't know anything beforehand. But I think we'll have a better grasp on that process moving forward now. But to answer your question from the sports side of things, obviously it's probably going to be really hard for him not to play sports, just
Yeah.
because daddy coaches. We watch a lot of sports. He's got the basketball hoop in his room, all that types of stuff, right? But we don't have to live through him. We don't have to, the dream we never got to live. Like, we both played college athletics. We had a great time. And so if he wants to do it, it'll be great. Like, I hope he does. And if he doesn't, if he wants to do something else, like, let's do it. But like, his two favorite things right now are race cars and some sort of sports ball. And
Yeah.
that's his favorite thing. He sees the D for Denison on daddy's clothes and he's like, ball, ball. And so he
Yeah.
knows. Um, Funny thing. So I joke all the time. I'm like, I think all this NIL stuff it's insanity. I
Yeah.
don't think the reason for it is insanity. I think the reason for it's actually really, really good. I think how we got to this point and what we're doing right now is the definition of insanity. With that, I'm like, I'll play the game. If I've got a 5-year-old that looks like he's 10, I'll play the game. I'll get somebody to bait and pay me a lot of money. They give money to basically anybody now. So I'm like, listen, I joke all the time. I'm like, I'm gonna have a third grader with a $500,000 uncrustable NIL, and I'm like, we're just gonna eat uncrustables for free for the rest of our lives. And I'm just like, I'll play the game. Like, I'm not stupid. I'll play the game, even though I do think it's insanity of what it's gotten to now. But I'm like, hey, somebody wants to write me a check, let's do it. So yeah, we joke about those things, but on the flip side, there is opportunities out there that it's like, if this is what he wants to do, then we want to prepare him to maximize those. And at the end of the day, there is life-changing money out there right now.
Hmm.
Like, it used to be life-changing to get a scholarship. Now there's life-changing money where it's like, you know, he could pay off, my mom and dad and Haley's mom and dad's homes and cars,
Yeah.
like that kind of life-changing money. Um, and so we just talk about it, not as frequently as you may think with him being younger. And once again, like we don't have to live through him. But we have talked about, like, we just want him to be set up with the best opportunities possible. We just bought a new home this past summer. The school district he's in, he's going to get an unbelievable high school education. We don't plan on moving anytime soon. So he's going to get an unbelievable education. The football team just won a state championship this past year in the top division in Ohio. The basketball team went to the Elite Eight. So, like, there's good sports programs. Every time we drive by the baseball fields, the baseball team is killing it. So I don't know anything about baseball, but if he wants to do it, go for it, man. There's a lot of money in that sport. So yeah, we have those conversations, but right now it's just more so making sure he's healthy, making sure he's safe, and just developing him as a little boy as much as we can. Because as you know, when you start really, really diving into the athletic world, there's no stopping.
Yeah.
There's no stopping it. And so I just want to enjoy as much time with him as we can before we get to that point. But luckily, I think Haley and I have such a good headspace about it. I'm not really worried where it would take us.
Yeah. And it's awesome. And, I wanted to obviously kind of take the coach hat off and see how you've had that outlook. Cause, I'm not a parent right now, but when I have nieces and nephews and I talk to my brother about my nephew, my youngest nephew right now, who is a very big second and third grader, like, and will eventually be, a pretty big kid, and he's playing football and having fun. But it's just like, when does that fun stop, right? Like, when do we start to have those conversations? So I always love talking to parents who have a view of it that is very different from the parent that was never in sports to the parent that was an athlete all their life. And, parents like you who are high level coaches, right? Division 1, Division 3. And if you're coaching at the college level, that's a high level of coaching. I don't care what anybody says. It's a high level of coaching where you access to different insights and different people and a lot of different information where it does impact how you parent your kid. And it does impact your outlook on what your child's future will look like. So that's why I wanted to kind of take the coaching hat off of you and hear kind of how you guys have that outlook for your own kids. We've talked about your athletic career. We've talked about your coaching career, where you've had, as my high school coach would call, selfish exuberance, with your entire career of getting into coaching. And then we've talked about you as a parent as well. But the last thing I want is just a piece of advice. You've had, I think you've had enough living for 10 lifetimes at this point, between volunteering for coaching and
Yeah, yeah.
getting into football and having your dad play basketball at an older age than what most people are playing at. What's a piece of advice, maybe something you've gotten from a coach or something you've learned throughout all of the living that you've done and all the experience that you've had, that maybe you tell your team, or just something that you live by?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I would love to give you, but I think the biggest thing is what I have learned is you are allowed to pivot in life. You are allowed to take a step back. When people think you're not allowed to take a breather for a second and process what the heck's actually happening, you are allowed to pivot. You're allowed to take a step back and say, hey, I just need a second to process this. But the biggest piece of advice that I can give, that as many times as I thought I wanted to, is don't quit. Just don't give up. No matter, take athletics outside of it. Like, if you feel like life has gotten to the point that, like, I just don't want to do this anymore, just take a breather. Just take a step back. Reach out to somebody you trust. Just don't quit. When you're out in athletics, it is hard. As a player, it is hard. I remember I got to the point that I felt like I was never going to actually get a chance from my position coach. Then they hired a new strength coach, and he was a miserable human being to be around. And I remember going into one of the offices in our athletic facility. I locked the door and I FaceTime my parents, and I'm bawling. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. No one believes in me. This guy's miserable. I just don't enjoy this. I don't want to do this anymore. And I took a step back after that conversation. I processed why I was feeling the way I was feeling. I pivoted my mindset a little bit, and I kept going, and then I figured it out. And so I think the biggest thing I would just say is, you are absolutely okay to pivot. You're absolutely okay to just take a deep breath and process and just separate yourself from a situation, but just don't quit. because you will have to live with that one for the rest of your life. Just keep going, keep going. Because if I would have thrown in the towel in a couple situations in my life, I would have been sitting with that now at 29 years old in a really rough place. And so I think that's the biggest thing is continue to believe in yourself, even if people don't believe in you. Like if there is a self belief and a self determination there, like there's some power in that. My dad used to say all the time when I was in college, finishing what I had started, he just would text me. He would just say, "I believe, I believe, I believe," and like I got to the point that I started believing, and then at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so just believe in yourself because you're more powerful than you think you are, and just don't quit. And it's easy to do that, but if you don't, I promise there will be something that comes out of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Whether you're an athlete or just a normal person, taking a step back is always better than quitting. So,
Yeah.
man, I appreciate this entire conversation. This was really awesome to listen to your story of going from football to basketball to literally everything that you've done, sleeping on couches. And I think we've all had those times where, as I said, we had to have some foolish exuberance. And that's probably how you can kind of sum up, your career of getting into college coaching is you just had to have, faith in yourself and let people know what your value was and what you bring. And I think you're making a huge impact. I think it's really awesome. And I can't wait to see, what Denison does. It's definitely a team I'm going to be paying attention to from here on out, knowing how much work you put into just the team and the recruiting and how much how much love you guys have on that campus. So, man, I really appreciate it. It's awesome to get to know you and get a glimpse into what Denison is doing. And I can't wish you anything but luck. So I appreciate the conversation today. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to sit and talk with you.
Thanks for the time. I really, really enjoyed it. If you ever need anything or want to do this again, I'm happy to sit down.